Dear heads on the wall, dear heads on the wall, always watching you. Hey! Dear heads on the wall, dear heads on the wall, always watching you. Dear hunter shot Bambi, Bambi took the fall, dear heads on the wall, always watching you. Yeah. You're not paranoid if they're out to get you. You're not paranoid if they're out to get you.
Today is the 30th? The 30th or the 31st. To point out immediately, I don't know how long I'm going to be out here. I wasn't out last week because, well, frankly, I had to work. And that is what it is, bills being paid and all that. A week later, wood popped him over my shoulder. We are in... right now probably a foot of snow, maybe more. It's 13 degrees out, so it's cold. Fortunately, there's not a lot of winds, so we will see how long we last with that. But we're out here. I'm using the body cam solely as a battery life today because it is that cold. There's a lot of things I didn't bring. The drone is kind of pointless. I mean, there's not a lot of wind, but the drone, the older one I have, that I had in my pack, is like 15 minutes of battery life under good conditions, but in 3 degrees, 13 degrees, 5 minutes. It's not even worth it. We'll see how long I'm out here. It's pristine. I'm actually surprised snowmobilers didn't get out here, but they haven't, so moving around in the snow as deep as it is going to be a workout in and of itself. And if nothing else, we came out today because conditions are prime for the infrasonic thing to rear its head. So we're going to take some readings of that, if nothing else, to look for tracks in the snow. That's, yeah, I mean, I'm out here today full weather gear today, as you can see. So let's get moving. I'm not going to prolong my stay here if I don't have to because it is that chilly, and we'll take things from there. And the camera handling today is going to be a little bit sloppy because I have thicker gloves on, so my dexterity is not what it is normally, but that's life in the big city. Okay, we're back. Instantly off the main trail in. And walking in, I was allowing for snow drifting. So thigh deep is now knee deep or more. So true to form. Just getting around in here is going to be a bit of a workout. Slow going. So I'm not covering 3 miles out here today because it's just not realistic. But if you look down, you can see where it's like up to my knees right now. So it's just kind of post hole. I could have brought snowshoes too, but I don't honestly think that would have really gained me anything as far as like labor saving or any such. It's just, there's just such a volume of snow that you're not really going to gain anything by having them or not. Anyway, this is kind of what keeps me out of Vermont during the winter too. It's just so deep. Getting anywhere with any distance is a bit of a bitch. So what we can cover today, we're going to listen in once we get closer to the pond. It's either going to be stone cold quiet or the infrasonic anomaly, as I refer to it. will rear its head. It's a good day to cover like really, 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 really cold weather squatching safety considerations. We can cover that. Hard to pass the camera from hand to hand too, just because I have the bigger, bulkier gloves on today. I don't have the same level of dexterity. And without the wind right now, half-fingered gloves are workable, but I have mitten covers because it's that cold, and fuck frostbite. Cold enough today, you got to consider that. So, brief update. The thing in southeastern Connecticut for later in the spring, I did talk to that gentleman. Guy I haven't dealt with before, but he seems like he's been around for a while, and nothing really to report in the way of concerns. So I might be doing that in the spring with this guy and a couple of others. I suspect I can guess some of the people that would be there, because they're going to be local nutmegger guys, or north in Massachusetts. You might have some of the Squatchachusetts guys show up, many of whom I already know. So if nothing else, it's an interestingly neutral expedition from the standpoint, it ain't my group, it ain't their group. It'd be a bunch of people coming together under even conditions, which is potentially refreshing. I'm kind of weaving between trees for reasons I don't really know, but I'm also kind of going slow because you have uneven ground and you're in really deep snow, so you don't know what you're stepping into. There's not a lot of crevasses or things like that in this area. It's fairly flat, but suddenly I realize that's like really low. So I think my point getting around this is just to move the branch, maybe not. We'll duck under, I guess. But so that is something I will be willing to do, because he was asking if I'm with the BFR. I don't think he's with them. And again, I don't diss the entire organization. It's a lot of people, and all the I have known several people in the BFRO, many of whom are solid field researchers and the like. And you can't really realistically, you notice how slow I'm going, realistically judge a group by one person when they're that big and that diverse a group. I've been out with several who are solid researchers and good folks. So that's going on. And layer one of deep snow, cold weather squatching considerations is layering. As in right now I have thick wool socks on, boots, gaiters, long johns, hunter's pants that are like fleece lined, duck lined, a techno fleece middle layer and a heavy coat over that I'm zipping and unzipping, because the other enemy you have out here is potentially sweat. Because believe it or not, walking through this level of depth of snow is a little bit more exertive than just walking. Interestingly enough, though, when you stop, it's hard to fall over because you got all that snow anchoring your feet. And also, weirdly, it acts as an insulator, because it is so cold. The snow is wet and is dry. It's not wet. You actually have more. I'm gonna fill out this log, okay, and then step over. That's gonna be one of the challenges for today, because not everything like that's gonna be immediately obvious either. Probably could have gone over beyond the stream, but the pond's right here and I want to just listen in. Beyond that, I don't really know because I'm not seeing shit for tracks right now. It's like it's been like this all week. The snowstorm that delivered this was on last Sunday and a Monday, and I'm here on Saturday, so it's been like this all week. And I just don't see, I mean, squirrels you might see on top of this. Voles are probably something that I've actually seen swim through the snow, and it's not a wet, heavy snow. It's actually like kind of light and powdery, so that does make it easier to move through. What really sucks is when you have like a freezing rain that puts a crust on top. You go and crunch through it. It's like this, but you got to punch through the snow too. That's not as fun. This is at least like real powder, which I could have brought snowshoes today just for the sake of getting them out of the house. But again, like I said, it really doesn't, snow this deep really does not in this weather gain you that much labor saving. Not to mention with the amount of off-grid down deadfall considerations, stepping over stuff doesn't really give you any advantage, at least in my opinion. I mean, might cover you a little bit in small. If you're walking through things going downhill and gliding downhill, that's kind of fun, but you can see how flat it is in here. It's relatively flat. So, but that's layering. Multifunctional gloves like these. Yes, they look like mittens from Christmas Story, but they overlap on your fingers, or you can have them unflapped in order to have dexterity for doing things like, you know, filming. I gotta figure a way through this because you got like deadfall and just trying to find the path of least resistance. But the other thing today, with it being so deep out here, it's just that quiet too. So if there is anything going on weird over there, you'll be able to hear it. And I brought my EMF reader for taking readings too from past experience. I have come back with crunchable data. I gotta figure out the way that's at least bullshit through here. It's probably backtracking over that way. I was thinking that, but meh. We'll go this way and go around. Just because I think that's going to be the easier. I'm not really covering major ground anyway, so it's not a loss of time. Just I'm going through this BS. There's a log there. Switch hands. Bear with me. So some of you have commented video quality out here is not always perfect, but I'm also trying to balance in borderline low level, thigh level depth snow and maneuvering through off-grid conditions. So shut up. In effect, you're kind of getting the raw, uncut version of getting out on a day like today, because there's like exactly zero human presence out here today. And again, unless they've had multiple snowfalls, which I think would have this being even deeper, there's just zero sign. I got to the trailhead, somebody tried to walk their dog, got in like 20 feet. I think just said screw it because of the fun factor getting in. And today I think I'm gonna go all the way down there and kind of avoid hopping the stream because you just can't see what's underneath in this. We're gonna take a quick short hiatus where I cover ground and get closer to the pond so I can listen in though, do some actual science work. Covered a little ground, maneuvered through some trees. Just felt like doing that undistracted. Yeah, passing a camera is kind of awkward with these gloves, but it would be all awkward also if I had numb fingertips too. Given the truth, I'd rather have the more frostbite resistant option. I chose to parallel the stream rather than jump it today because there's too much snow over to see exactly where what is. We're not even going to attempt a creek jumping over further that way, but just you don't want cold feet when it's 13 degrees. Fair to say. What I am noting though is a complete and total lack of tracks. Like I've covered easily a couple hundred yards now, and there's nothing. There's quite literally not a track to be seen. I'm the only dummy out here by myself, but I did come out here with a bit of an agenda, science-y wise. As we get closer, if things hold true, it's going to get deeper as I get closer to the water because it's drifting, and we'll navigate that as we can. But so far on average it's basically up to your knees, which is manageable. This looks like a drift though. Let's see. Maybe not. Solidly knee deep though. So the cornerstone of my agenda today was to get down here where you have open space. If the anomaly was making the weird ass subwoofer sound that it made last 2 years ago and last year, you would be hearing it. Doesn't seem to last the test of time though. It's like you gotta be there on the right day, and if I missed it last week, was number one, I was working, and second, not that that's an excuse, but it was, I think, colder last week too. It was basically, what was it last week? I think up here was probably, if I got up here, it would have probably been windier. Now the wind is picking up. Not too bad, but it was, if it gets that bad, I don't have that long a walk back, and I can backtrack in my tracks too now, as normal. What was it last week? I think it would have been maxed out up here last week at like 4 degrees. And it was windier, so oh Jesus Christ. Alright, there's your stream. Back up. And let's kind of just tenuously. It is getting drifty, so you just gotta step carefully. Not huge ones, but yeah, so my ambitions today are a little more limited just because of lack of mobility. You're not going to trudge all the way through this and cover 2 miles today. Not without burning a couple thousand calories anyway. Okay, actually I found a shallow spot, so I'll stop there for a few. And yeah, or maybe get some photography in. This is a scenic spot. And the funny thing is, with the depth of snow, some guys do actually keep a canoe over there. I don't know. I've never seen them here, so I don't know. I think somebody set up a bushcrafting camp. I only saw them here once. Seems dilapidated this year, so it's something they did last year. But their canoe is either gone or lost to the snow for a bit. And good luck with that. Alright, so the snow drifting has had the opposite effect this year too, so far over in this particular area. It is, well, I found a shallow spot. This might be deeper, I don't know. Or, no, it's about knee deep. I don't remember any crazy crevasses in this area. It's actually relatively flat, so, except for this stone wall right here. So let's kind of gauge that, because that's the kind of stuff you have to step over and kind of gauge. When you step down, it's not that bad. Yeah, so today's going to kind of be a snow trudge and yapping sort of video, because depth of snow, complexity of maneuvering and stuff this deep. So other cold weather things, as I did say, that's probably going to be the predominant subject of the day. You have to know when to open and close your coat, because when you're walking through stuff like this, despite the fact it's barely double digits, you can sweat, and sweat when it's this cold, even in short exposure, hypothermia is something you got to regulate. There's a layer of challenge in being out here today. That's the thing. You got to kind of know what you're doing. When I stop, it gets a little cold, not crazy cold, but again, you have to gauge sweating. I mean, when I get back to the car, I probably am going to take off at least one layer, if not two, and then I'm just going to jack up the heat and regulate between the two. That's one thing. And there's mixed reviews on, like, if this was a survival situation and you needed to get water, it's frozen but it's there, you would have to melt it. If you try to eat snow, I've heard that actually has a dehydrating effect when it's this cold and dry out, just from the cold factor. Proving to be the tamer of the two alternatives today down here. It's just, you have a couple of songbirds out here, and God knows how they survive on this crap. But I mean, if you were stranded out here and you were way the hell further out than I am right now, your best bet literally would be like a Quinzay if you go to set one up. Although the snow, the powdery aspect of the snow, I don't know how that would work. You might need like a candle or something inside to semi-melt it in order to, or the zipping up of the zipper thing again, because once you stop and the sweat gets over itself, the wind comes in under your coat, and you can feel that very quickly. I think the wind right now, it's like probably, so by comparison to the girl that perished in the White Mountains, and another anomaly I've heard a few out right now are wood pops. You'll hear this time of year. Basically, like on a newer tree, there's the more flexible, pulpy inner period. What's happening is it's expanding and contracting. When it does that, it makes a sound that sort of, kind of, emphasis on sort of, kind of, sounds like a wood knock. But I've literally heard them, like, you have a tree right there and it'll do one, and you're like, okay, where's the ape man with the stick whacking on a stick, and what's he doing out in the fucking cold like that? He should be in a, if they know how to use fire, he should be in a cave somewhere warming up, because it's freezing out here. And you probably come out and watch the one stupid human out here talking to himself. Like, what the hell is he doing? It's freezing. We have fur, they don't. Anyway, I am going to look for, do an overall loop to look for tracks, although, like I said, I've seen absolutely none. Usually the most preponderant are small rodents, and I wouldn't be surprised, because it is so loose that if you had like voles, I've actually seen them tunnel in the snow, and it's probably warmer down there because the snow actually is like a weird insulator that way when it's loose like this and not wet. They have like a fur layer, so it's probably the most warm they're going to be out here. So yeah, we're going to take a segment break again, probably a clumsy camera transition. I'll try to doctor that up with the software later, but I'll get some photography in. I'm going to listen a little more. If it's all quiet, it is. That's the end. It is what it is. It's not something that happens at any particular time of the year other than right now, and I may have missed the window, but we'll listen and see what happens. Either way, we're taking a break. We'll be back in a bit. Recording again. I'm just making do with the clumsy handling of this. So another thought that occurs to me today, and this is like the level of evidence now that's required. The last few days I was playing with Grok 4, the latest and greatest, politics notwithstanding, the latest and greatest generative AI, and playing around with adding adding things to an existing real scene. So like you'll take a picture of this scenery and then because I'm weird and like that, have a random hiker being chased through there by a flying brain monster that's yelling at him, and it'll do it. And it is realistically enough. I mean, I'm sure if you can break down frame by frame into like motion JPEG frame by frame rate, you'll find a thumbnail or something in there. But to the untrained eye, ... not so much maybe. And it is pretty out here. When the wind isn't going, it's actually not that bad. When you get the wind going, that changes rapidly, though. That's why you layer up like you do. I decided I would throw that out there. Once upon a time, like a year ago, I think I made a commentary about photos being the generative AI thing, and to some degree, like voice imitation and things too. But in playing with my own likeness and the whole deepfake thing, the bad news is it works. It doesn't get the voice right, but if you wanted to make embarrassing photos, and here's the thing, don't do it. It is literally a crime and illegal if you're doing it without somebody's consent. So, which is why I did it with myself, but it works and it's convincing. And you can do some really weird and stupid shit with it, but it does work. That's why, like, video evidence is now kind of like a bitch too, because you can literally make there was a thing that was on Facebook that inspired me to play with the brain monsters. You had a cryptid come running through a scene, and it was like a bear-looking thing with a big, long, fluffy tail. But with generative AI, I think they were using Google VO, because I tried to imitate the same thing with Grok 4, and it came out a little differently. But I mean, you could tell, but it was, the overall effect wasn't bad. So if you really, really want to believe and you're one of those, you notice that a lot of the Bigfoot believer groups are like just infested with AI shit, because there are gullible people there that will buy into that. And like, I'm sorry, but the cynical thing right now is no, it's AI. Because I have literally played, and no, I'm not trying to hoax anyone for anyone who's going to go and be all like that, but it is getting that good. I mean, the person that's being chased by the brain monster, I posted 2 yesterday morning, is not a real person, in the fact that it's not anyone I know. I said, generate a random hiker. So somewhere through the many Google images out there in the Google Zonverse, Grok grabbed some random sampling and made some hiker dude running away and saying, leave me alone, as a brain monster is chasing him down a very snow-covered part of excuse me, the walking trail in my neighborhood. Was he ever there? No. But that being said, we're going to start working our way back down towards there. Excuse me. The dry air is taking its toll. I don't think I'm going to get any noise, because, I mean, normally it doesn't take long to hear resonance of the infrasound coming from. That's just not here today. Conditions are here, but it's not. And with the wind, I was hoping there'd be less wind, because with the wind itself will give off infrasound, which is a false positive for those who haven't played with this kind of science before. To those who are wondering, well, what is the source of the infrasound when I have heard it? You tell me. No idea. That is the mystery. However, we're going to take another segment break. This one is going to be a short one, and probably camera on, camera off, just because battery life. I mean, this camera has, under best conditions, at a moderate setting of video rate as opposed to the optimal, probably between 8 and 10 hours, whereas when you do the optimal, it's more like 6 to 8. But you're doing night vision, might drain that a little faster too, as you're using more circuitry inside. But with the weather being as cold as it is today, I make no assumptions. My other fish lens camera has like just straight up said bleep you and not cooperated in the cold before. And today is pushing like elemental extremes, at least in not in terms of wetness, but in terms of the raw cold. Although ironically, I found the bigger villain in its handling is to be like high level humidity in mid-July kind of a thing. But we're gonna get heading back. It's just easier not to be distracted by yapping into the camera if I can do that. And because you can hear the wind coming in now, so if that's gonna pick up, it is gonna get a lot colder. I think the entire day is gonna max out at 10 degrees today. I also found out on an interesting note that the phone app on my phone is not as accurate as I thought. It said I woke up to minus 6 degrees today, and then I walked out and, 8 to 10, okay, but like minus 6, no. But especially when it said it was warmer up here than it was down where I live. That's not really the case. Usually we're losing 5 to 10 degrees coming up here. And actually the ecosystem between here and southern Vermont really is not that different, although it is this time of year. I looked at where I usually go in Vermont, and aside from the fact they have a snowpack that's probably up to your waist by now, the real feel was minus 23, and screw that. That's how that girl in the White Mountains perished. We're not doing that. It was minus 10, but she had like 91 mile-an-hour winds too. She was up on a mountain, well, out of this stuff, and like up on the raw mountain, which I don't care how much gear you have. I don't want to know what that feels like. Anyway, we're going to take a segment break, get in some last-minute photography, and then see where we end up. But until then, let me another sloppy switch of the camera, and we'll be back in a bit. For one final segment, I find it's easier to handle this in my left hand today. Steve Coles had an episode on his podcast, I think it was like 2 weeks ago now. He brought up some interesting points from an old-timer point of view. I'm not saying that he's old in this, because I have roughly the same amount of time in as he does in doing this. And it kind of plays into the theme of the day: deep snow, an increasing amount of wind, and some winter outdoorsy safety considerations. But to that end, he also brought up a reluctance to bring the quote-unquote newbie out into the woods. And there are reasons for that. I don't remember word for word what he said, but I'm going to cover my own. One, you have to vet that person. Because on a day like today, if something went wrong, if nothing else, you may need to depend on that person to help get you back to the car. And what that means is that person needs to know what the bleep they're doing. And it also calls into question, and validly so, what is the judgment involved in coming out on a day like this? And again, that is a valid question. I will make the argument in my own favor, and you see I am literally backtracking because I already know I didn't hit anything crazy coming through here. The judgment in coming out today is a valid concern, but again, you have to know what you're doing. That is, knowing what gear and equipment you're going to need, knowing your limitations, knowing how to pace yourself, and for better or for worse, going slow and steady and by the book. When you act in haste is when you mess up and you get into trouble. I'm heading back now mainly because I do notice my feet are starting to get a little cold, and they're probably the least, I mean, these boots are good and waterproof, but I'm thinking I have another pair that probably would have served me better today. So again, know your limitations. You notice I'm not trying to trek in 5 miles in. That's just the exertion of walking through this is going to make that unrealistic. But he also touched upon, so there's a couple of considerations for vetting people. One, how well they know what they're doing. How seasoned and how steady are they if you run into some adversity. I have been out with people who claim they were good to go and then balked the minute you're talking about going off the trail. You're not going to run into squatchy on the trail much more likely than you are. You also need to know how you're going to get along for the same reason. People who are bickering are going to be distracted from safety concerns and the like. And the other one may come across like a bit of snobbery, but there's a thing out there called newbie entitlement. And my take on that is, taking a second to catch my breath a little bit, but it kind of plays in to a person's motivation. And there are people out there who have had interest in this for under a year, but all of a sudden they're the one trying to get all the speaking gigs at a conference or be the next big thing. One could honestly call it potentially a form of social climbing, and it is. And I would be lying if I said I haven't had certain individuals do that to me, and I haven't, and for people that know me currently, not you, more back about between 10 and 13 years ago are some pretty brazen examples. But the thing is, and not my co-founder, when I met him, he had already had some boots on the ground time in. I don't know how much of this shit he's been doing, but rest in peace, Dan. But he was not a stranger to being out in the woods and bushcrafting, and that is the kind of person you want to be out with. Also, there's the principle of the thing. I know the places where there's been activity because I did the work. I did the research. I went out there. I checked the maps and connected the dots. It's exactly the same concept if you have a secret fishing hole and you bring some unvetted guy there and then you go back in 2 weeks and it's all fished out because he has a gift of gab, if you know what I mean. This is no different. And I did encounter a guy in a neighboring group, I think it's either 2 or 3 years ago, and he was constantly, where exactly, like basically anytime anyone reported anything, was demanding GPS coordinates. And that's a big red flag. And if you realize that I'm talking about you, Joe, fuck you, I don't care. I'm gonna wrap up here. He My neck is sweating, of all things. He would always do that, and it's a red flag. Because he's going to come in, and the reason you don't share with everybody is you may have patterns of ongoing activity. And if you have 3 different groups in there tripping over each other, your conditions are no longer what I call neutral, and you don't know how professional these people are. You don't know if they're a bunch of social climbing yahoos. And I'm sorry if that sounds like it's snobby, but that is how you fuck up a completely good investigation. The same person who used me and some other people for social climbing purposes did that at least 3 times that I'm aware of. It does happen. And breached if there is a squatching etiquette in the old school sense of doing things, this person breached every fucking one of them, and that's why to this day their name is Little Miss Non Grata, in my humble opinion. I have no desire to ever interact in the woods with her or anyone associated with her, because that's just what she brings to the table. On that happy note, we're going to make our way out of here because the wind is picking up. And I actually am starting to sweat a little bit, weirdly enough. So we're going to make our way out. Like, subscribe. Today, again, kind of a short one, mainly just because it's that cold, and again, going back to knowing your limitations. So before my feet start going thoroughly numb, we're going to make our way out of here and be on our way. So we'll catch you next time. Hopefully you like this kind of content where it's cold, deep snow, because this probably isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And we'll catch you on the next one. So until then, bye.